Edge, the major conflict is really the person against the society. The main character, Larry's unwillingness to follow a well-trodden path, is not understood by his friends or even his fiancée, and sometimes it's not even accepted from them. The author, William Somerset Maugham, includes himself as the narrator of the story, and these facts may make us doubt about the reliability of the story and what really happened and what didn't, because we learned that the author was really seeking in his life and day-to-day activities to find inspiration for his novel. After taking a closer look at Maugham's life, we realized that some attributes between his characters and himself are in fact shared, and we wondered, these characters, have they really existed, or is it just a projection of the author himself? At some point, the author already said, "I think that my book, within his acknowledgement limitation, will be a useful source for my friend's autobiography. But is The Razor's Edge, his last book, in for his own autobiography? We're not sure of that, but what we're sure of is that even the author at some point could not differentiate what was true from what was fiction in his work. He even said, and we found this statement in the Selena Hastings autobiography, is that facts and fictions are so intermingled in his work that looking back at it, he can already distinguish one from the other. In today's presentation, me and Beatrice will take a look at different aspects that are shared in the book with either the characters or some facts that really happen to the author that in the book happens to the characters. In the book, Larry left for India and went on a trip to find some question, maybe about self-discovery, but came back not really with the question, but met some guides that helped him in life. And what we found interesting to notice is that Maugham went to India himself. He went on a trip to find peace, as outlined in the David Shaftel article Somerset Maugham Swampy. Along the way, he was gripped by an intense conviction that India had something to give, and he found some peace in the ashram of Sri Ganesha and Hindu saint. We think it is interesting that he chose this trip for Larry too, maybe because he's just projecting his own trip in The Razor's Edge. What is interesting too is that some passage of the novel correspond to the exact words he had during his trip in India. Indeed, in page 296, we find the statement, Sri Ganesha used to say that silence is also a conversation. But the author learned this statement himself while talking to this spiritual guide. So I think that it was inspired by his own trip. Also, during his trip to India, Maugham met a guy that was really likely to Larry Darrow. It's the Major A.W. Chadwick. He's really likely to with Larry because he's a retired officer looking for enlightenment, and he never rose his voice. He had a really weird relationship with money. Money was not important for him, and he was not interested in him. The complete story of this major can be found in our sources down below. But what we find interesting is that Larry exactly has the same relationship with money. At page 284 in The Razor's Edge, we find a statement, "You see, for you, money means freedom. To me, it means bondage." So we believe that Larry's quest to India is in fact inspired by Maugham's own travel, but it's also inspired by the guy he met over there, which is General Chadwick.
An obvious comparison that can be made between Somerset Maugham's personal life and his novel The Razor's Edge, to prove that he created characters based on his own persona, is religion. The author, in A Writer's Notebook, mentioned, "I'm glad I don't believe in God. When I look at the misery of the world and its bitterness, I think that no relief can be more ignoble." This strong statement that the author made can clearly be associated with one of his characters, Larry Darrow. On page 256, Larry says that after seeing his dead co-worker at war, he couldn't bear to understand why evil existed if God existed too. If an all-good and all-powerful God created the world, why did he create evil? Said Larry. Both the author and Larry seem to be living in a constant wonderment regarding God's existence, purpose, and goal. Their mutual questions are also related to the place that religion plays in society. Although Mom revealed to be agnostic, and therefore not believe in any god as a higher entity, the author still shows a desire to understand the fundamentals, such as he did in India. On his side, Larry is confused and tries to understand the basics of religion while in a monastery and then in India. Both religion, Christianity and Buddhism, are quite different in terms of values and perception. But Larry acknowledges aspects of both and does not belittle any of them. Then, when looking at a sunset in India, Larry receives a type of illumination that provokes a change in him. On page 279, Larry understands that for Buddhists, life is like a cycle. Ramakrishna states that life is a game and that the latter cannot continue if evil and suffering are erased altogether from this world. Larry answers that he would reject that with all of his strength, proving the similarity between the author and him. Somerset Maugham states in his novel, A Writer's Notebook, "I do not believe in God. I see no need for such an idea. It is incredible to me that there should be an afterlife. I find the notion of future punishment outrageous and a future reward extravagant. I am convinced that when I die, I shall cease entirely to live. I shall return to the earth I came from." We believe that Somerset Maugham projects himself into Larry when talking about his skepticism and agnosticism. We can also see that Maugham uses his own sexual persona when creating female characters. One of the aspects of the author's life that were highly analyzed after his death is his sexuality. Many sources, such as The New Yorker, depicted that Maugham had a strong sexual appetite and was both homosexual and bisexual. He stated, "I tried to persuade myself that I was 3/4 normal and that only 1/4 of me was queer, whereas in reality it was the other way around." This quote was found in The Secret Lives of Somerset Maugham, written by Selina Hastings. We believe that he foreshadowed his own characteristic in Sophie MacDonald's character. Sophie is a character that, after losing her husband and child in a car accident, came to Paris and lived a provocative life. She slept with various men, drank a lot, and made use of drugs such as opium. The author is famous for his Villa Moresque, a mansion, which is now a hotel and a restaurant. During Maugham occupation, the villa was the location for numerous parties of nudity, sexual practices, abundance of alcohol, and of drugs. In line with his sexual preferences, only men were invited. This provocative way of living highly resembles the way of Sophie MacDonald. On page 192, it's mentioned, "Her hands, with her nails painted, were dirty. She looked more of a slut than any woman there, and I had a suspicion that she was not only drunk, but doped. But one couldn't deny that there was a certain vicious attractiveness about her." Somerset Maugham also had male companions during his life. Even if he was married to the interior decorator Siri Welcome for 11 years, inclines the bisexual option, it was mentioned that Maugham may have done so only to convince society regarding his orientation. The two companions helped his career by acting as secretaries and keeping him company. His employment or occupation resembles the one of Suzanne Rouvier. We believe that Suzanne Rouvier is a fictional character that represents his two companions, Alan Cyril and Gerald Haxton. Suzanne Rouvier's way of living is a representation of Maugham's true lovers. The author depicts that he helped and gained from his companions in the same way that the narrator helped and gained from Suzanne Rouvier. In the end, we believe that Maugham's strong sexual persona is reflected in the female characters of The Razor's Edge.
Mom has a really great taste in fine paintings and art, and he really shared these attributes with Elliot Templeton in the novel. Indeed, Elliot has an impressive collection of paintings, and when dying, he gave some of these paintings to Mom. One notice on page 243 is the Faganal drawing. We tried to look in Mom's art collection to find this painting, but it was we couldn't find it, so we don't know if it really occurred. Also, these facts make us wonder Elliot a bit of a projection of Mom one side of his personality. We know that Mom likes fancy dinner parties with a lot of person, which is also the case of Elliot. We also learn on page 289 that Mom lives at Cap Ferret, which is really the case in real life. The Villa Moresque where he lived was in Cap Ferret, and this place was known to have a lot of always have a lot of influential people in, and always some parties. As for Elliot, it's quite the same. He also states when lending his apartment to Isabelle that he is really more at home at the Riviera, and it's the only place we can meet people that speak his own language. At page 132, I think it can be a metaphor for Mom, because Mom could not express his real sexuality, his real self everywhere, but at La Villa Moresque, he had this opportunity. Also, in the Medium article, as cited in our sources, we could find the statement, dinner at La Villa Moresque was much more of a formal affair, often with white ties, dinner jacket, and splendid clothes required, although Mom often broke his own rule and wear a silver smoking jacket, but then he was the host. We think that this statement really resembles Elliot, because Elliot accorded a lot of importance to social status, but also how he was dressed. He wanted to wear one last time his favorite jacket to a last party, but he couldn't attend finally because he died before. We also know that both men are really generous to other people, so that's another thing that they share. And finally, we think that they both have a bit an extravagant life, but it is sometimes hidden. So I think that Mom portrayed
William Somerset Maugham's The Razor's Edge. Many resemblance can be seen between characters and the real personal life of the author. One might depict that the author projects himself into Larry's character, but we strongly believe that he used other elements of his personal life to create Sophie MacDonald, Elliot Templeton, and Suzanne Rouvier. Even if Maugham portrays himself to be the narrator in the story, he resembles much more to the other characters. Through the themes of arts, spirituality, religion, conventions, and sexuality, Maugham's person is depicted in various characters of the novel, The Razor's Edge. The narrator of the story, being Somerset Maugham, says on various occasions that his imagination is entangled with reality and truth. Although, we believe that it was not only his imagination that created The Razor's Edge, but also his personal life.